everybody. Welcome to English Champion. On this episode, I'm going to divert a little bit from what I usually talk about, not an education-related topic today. But I do want to talk about something related to literature, which is films. Obviously, I'm a big film fan. And a couple weeks ago, as everyone knows, several weeks ago now, the filmmaker and actor Robert Redford passed away. And so throughout much of October, many streaming platforms and YouTube channels have been sort of doing tributes, and they've been playing all of his old movies and having podcasts about his work and things like that. And as I've been listening to some of those and watching some of those old movies back again, I've been noticing that there's a couple things that not everyone is talking about. And I wanted to highlight two of his films that I don't think get enough recognition. And so I'm going to talk about those here shortly, that I think when people think of Robert Redford, they are forgetting about these two other films. And so Redford was a great actor, of course, and eventually became a director and was a producer. And the thing that I often think about Robert Redford, especially after going back and watching so many of his movies, which most of them I've seen before, but I went back and watched several in the last month or so, is that you forget how many consecutive films or how many years he had just these iconic films that we still talk about over 50 years later. Or if the film wasn't great, the role itself was really important or iconic. And it's just amazing that actors today don't really do that. They don't appear in a movie every single year, much less have each of those movies be something that is really good and will last a long time. If they happen to appear in several movies, it's like, oh, I was in this Netflix movie this year, and I was on this HBO Max movie next year, and then like they're gone, we forget about them. But these are iconic roles. So just as an example, in 1969 he was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And then in 1972, he goes on this crazy run where he's Jeremiah Johnson. In 1972, Jeremiah Johnson and The Candidate. 1973, The Sting and The Way We Were. I've never seen The Way We Were. I have no interest in watching it, but it's a pretty famous film that people still talk about. 1974, The Great Gatsby. Not exactly a great film, but an iconic role and a character for sure. 1975, 3 Days of the Condor. 1976, All the President's Men. So in that 5-year stretch, he's in some of the most famous films that have ever been made. So again, it's just as a working actor, but also as someone who was such a celebrity, to be working that much and to be picking projects and working with directors and other actors that became so successful. It's just really amazing. And it makes me miss the years when actors actually acted in movies on a regular basis, because now it's 5 years before you see them in anything decent. And that's a heck of a run that we just don't see anymore. Another thing I think about with Redford is how many characters you immediately know their names. Now, today we think, well, Tom Cruise. When you hear Ethan Hunt, you think Tom Cruise. When you hear Maverick, you think Tom Cruise. You might even think Jerry Maguire, you think Tom Cruise. So he's one of those people. For Tom Hanks, it's like, well, you hear Forrest Gump, you're talking about Tom Hanks. So there are some actors who have some of those, but when you think of all the ones that Robert Redford has inhabited over the years, when you say, for me as a kid growing up in the 80s, when you say Roy Hobbs, you're like, well, that's Robert Redford. I mean, that's Roy Hobbs. And so when you think back to all the famous names he's portrayed, you think, well, the Sundance Kid, and you think Johnny Hooker in The Sting, or you think, Jeremiah Johnson. The name of the film is his name. He's Bob Woodward in All the President's Men. For my wife, he's Nathan Muir, because her favorite movie is Spy Game, which I like that movie too. But so even more recent films, you're like, oh well, that's him. That's his character name. You immediately tie the character name to the actor, and again, it's because he's so charismatic and good looking and talented that these iconic names. And Jay Gatsby, again, that film's not great, but when you think of the original Jay Gatsby, I still think of Robert Redford. I don't think of Leonardo DiCaprio in the remake version. I think Robert Redford. So he embodies these people and these characters. They are what keep living on. And again, there's just not that many actors that you can associate with that many famous roles. And so that's kind of cool that he just becomes those people. And again, he's always Roy Hobbs to me. He's a guy who I don't have the same political views that he has. And yet you also know that when you're watching, you don't really care. That's kind of unique today, where you hear celebrities and they spout off on their politics, and it's kind of an immediate turnoff. But he was somebody that you could hear about his politics and go, okay, well, I don't necessarily agree with everything he's saying, but he still believes in the art. He's not. Most of his films, anyway, are not using the art for propaganda purposes. He's making them because they're actually good stories. And again, that's something that I think has changed over time, where whether it's directors or writers or actors or whoever has this influence in Hollywood, where the political messaging sort of takes center stage. And even though he was a very political guy, I never felt like that took the center stage, and it always came back to the art, and that's why the Sundance Festival became so successful, and he helped young filmmakers get their, kind of get their footing in learning what it's like to be a real filmmaker. So he ended up doing things that were more valuable than his political stances, even though he was a little bit vocal about it. His devotion to the craft and to the art of filmmaking is what I always remember, both from the movies as a kid as well as he even getting older. Just made great films. So what are the two films that I actually like the most? Well, what's unique about my selection is that they're actually not films he was in. My two favorite Robert Redford films, as much as I love all those other movies, and I've seen most of them multiple times, the ones I've watched the most and the ones that are the highest on my personal list of favorite films are the ones he has directed, two of them specifically. And I don't think people talk about them enough. Again, because he was behind the scenes, you may not even realize he was the director. But these are my two favorite Robert Redford films. They are Ordinary People from 1980 and from 1994, Quiz Show, films he directed. Ordinary People is, again, a film that does not get recognized enough, and it's sort of a weird film because you would think today it would never get made. It's this tiny family drama with just a few characters, and it's a very sad story, and it's focused on a young person. The focus of the film is not on anyone who's a superstar actor at the time, and so you think, well, how did this even get made? But that was the environment back in the 70s and 80s, and even in the 90s. You could get stuff made that wasn't all the stuff today, where it's like, oh, it has to be big spectacle. These were actual intimate stories, and Ordinary People is a super intimate story because it's just about one family. It's about two parents and a kid, and it's an incredibly touching film. One reason I love it is because it has a mythological quality to it. It's a hero's journey story. It's a hero's journey that happens emotionally and psychologically. It happens within the lead character of Conrad, but it's a hero's journey. He has these, he has to start from this terrible place, and he has to go through these various trials, and he has another catastrophic event, and we wonder if he's going to work himself out, and he has a guide, a mentor along the way, and he has to learn how to reconcile with people around him, but also be able to move on emotionally and again psychologically himself. It's a total hero's journey, and yet it doesn't require superheroes and battles and all this stuff. The battle of the story is within himself, and it's just quite a beautiful story, and it's very daring because the premise is that the female, the mother, is the antagonist of the film. And you would think, well, that doesn't, outside of like crazy, weird horror movies or something, females aren't always the villains of the film, and yet the mom in this story is. Even more strange than that is it comes off a back-to-back year in which the films that won Best Picture both had wives as being the antagonists of the film. The year before, Kramer versus Kramer also won the Oscar, another intimate movie that probably wouldn't get made today. And so the Academy Awards for back-to-back years were two very small, intimate movies. Kramer versus Kramer had more star power because it had Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep in it. But, Ordinary People had Donald Sutherland and Mary Tyler Moore. But two intimate family dramas, and both of them have the females as the antagonist. Again, it's just something you probably wouldn't see anymore. Where we paint the mother, the authors of those books, both of them were books that became films. The mother is the problem in those stories. One of the legends of the film is that, or behind the scenes stories of the film, is that the climactic scene at the end where Donald Sutherland gives this amazing speech to his wife apparently Donald Sutherland performed it, and it was filmed and ready to go, and it was put in a draft of the film, and he saw it, and Redford saw it, and they both kind of agreed, like, this doesn't quite work. And Sutherland's like, I can do that better. Can we refilm it? And so even long after the film had wrapped, Redford and Donald Sutherland just got together and filmed it just themselves. And he performed the speech again, and that's what appears in the real film. And it's just a devastating final speech that's so sad to hear. And it's why I think Donald Sutherland should have won the Oscar for that year. It's sort of an odd year at the Oscars because for whatever reason they put Timothy Hutton, the teenage boy in the film, in the Best Supporting Actor category. My theory is because they knew they were going up against Robert De Niro in Raging Bull for the Best Actor category, and they decided he's going to win that, so let's try a different category. When it doesn't make sense. Timothy Hutton, who plays Conrad, he's the main character of the film. He should have been in the Best Actor category, and he, again, might not have won. The person who should have won the Best Supporting Actor category that year should have been Donald Sutherland. That performance is heartbreaking and beautiful, and he goes through so many different emotions in that film. It's one of the best pieces of acting you'll ever see. And he, not only didn't he win, he wasn't even nominated, which is an absolute crime of the Academy Awards. Many people think that year at the Oscars that Raging Bull should have won everything with Scorsese and De Niro. That film is very overrated. I've watched it 3 times. I've tried to give it its due because everyone views it as such a classic film, a great sports film, sort of. It's not a sports film, but because it's about boxing, people kind of think it is. And it's Martin Scorsese, and it's got all this flashy direction. And admittedly, De Niro's performance is great. All the characters in that film are great, but it's not actually a great film. That's my big hot take, that Ordinary People was the deserving winner that year at the Oscars over Raging Bull. So that's not an error that year that many people think it is. Something else about that film that sticks with me today is that film plays Pachelbel's Canon in D throughout much of the film. And so my first memory of hearing that song is in that movie. I don't remember hearing it as a kid before that. And so by the time I was, I don't know, probably in high school and I watched that film, I heard that song. And to me, Canon in D is a very sad song because I associate it with the film Ordinary People. And so I go to weddings and I'm like, why are you playing Canon in D? That is not a happy song. That's not a love song. Why are you playing it? Though it can be interpreted as one. For that film, though, because it's tied to this rather sad story, I cannot get that out of my brain. And so whenever I go to a wedding and I hear it, I'm immediately like, I'm out of it. I struggle with connecting that song with a loving environment like a wedding. I just can't do it. To me, it still holds that it represents this feeling of sadness for a family. So don't invite me to a wedding where you're going to play Canon in D because I won't be into it. But anyway, use of classical music kind of really picked up about that point in the 80s as well. So it's just a beautiful film, and this was the first time Redford had even directed anything, and he won the Oscar for it. And again, it's one of my favorite films, and it's not even one he acted in. So everyone should go watch Ordinary People. I think the book used to be fairly common reading for high schoolers a couple decades ago. I don't think it probably is anymore. I actually like the film better. The book is fine. It actually switches narration a little bit, which is interesting, but it has a couple scenes in it that I don't really care for that much. And I think just the visuals of how it's directed and acted by all those great actors. Judd Hirsch as well is fantastic in it. He was up for an Oscar. I actually would recommend watching the film instead. So it's great. It's rated R, but it is great for high school students to watch because here's a kid who's going through an actual tragedy. And, he had this horrible event happen in his family and he's wrecked with guilt about it and he doesn't know how to process it. And, when we compare to today's young people and their mental health problems, it's like, well, this kid has a real mental health problem. This is a serious situation. And it can be great for just putting things in perspective and seeing how having someone to talk to, in the film, it's a therapist, but it can be anyone. He tries to talk to his parents and he struggles with that. They don't quite know how to connect with him. He has trouble connecting with his friends because he's still holding on to these memories. And so the idea of being able to just talk things out, that maybe we don't need medication for everything, but can we just listen and learn from each other? And and again, recognize what an actual mental health crisis is versus the things that kind of get labeled that way now. It's just a great film, and I would recommend it for, you know, I think teenagers can handle it. Beautiful film, very sad in my opinion, but it does end on a slightly hopeful note. But again, because it's a hero's journey, it's just a great story from a structure standpoint. And as I said, all the actors are great. And Robert Redford won the Oscar for directing as well. My other favorite film of Robert Redford's is, again, another one he didn't act in, and it's from 1994, Quiz Show. Quiz Show is a film that I really love, and I've shown it actually in my American literature courses from time to time, because it does a great job of just presenting the post-war kind of early 50s climate where the country has shifted a little bit. There's this idea of prosperity and stability. And there's also the emergence of television, even reality television, like game shows were super popular. And so in my classes, once we get to, again, the post-war era of my American literature classes, I show this because just from a historical standpoint, it's very well, it does a good job of presenting that time period. But also from a literary standpoint, the film is considered one of the better scripts that have ever been written, especially in the last 40 years or so. Because structurally and how the characters all pursue their own like individual plots, but then all the plots come together. It's just really brilliantly done from a structural and literary standpoint. And so, there's nothing flashy about the film's direction. You wouldn't really, you wouldn't think that this is a great directed film because, again, there's nothing that's very unique about it. It's pretty straightforward, but the way he pieces that story together is quite brilliant. And I don't think he was nominated for the Oscar that year, but the film was nominated for Best Picture. And so it has earned great respect. But Redford himself has kind of gotten lost in it because, again, he wasn't in it and he wasn't nominated for any awards for it, even though it turned out to be a fantastic film. The real reason I love that film so much is the three characters. It's sort of like No Country for Old Men, where it revolves around three characters and they're each pursuing their own goal. They're almost chasing each other. Now, unlike No Country for Old Men, these three characters do interact with each other at various points of the film, but they're all kind of circling around each other and chasing after one another. Herb is chasing after some notoriety, which Charles Van Doren already has. Dick Goodwin is chasing after both of them because he's trying to get to the bottom of this scandal. Even Charles Van Doren is chasing after his father's legacy. He's trying to figure out how to be his own man. He's also trying to get some credit like Herbert had for being the champion on the game show for all those weeks. So like each of them have their own goal. And Herbert's trying to gain self-respect because he feels like he's gotten looked over his whole life. Charlie's trying to gain self-respect for, again, trying to get out of his father's shadow. Dick Goodwin's trying to gain respect because he kind of has this low-level investigative job for the government, and he feels like he's smarter than that and he should be doing more interesting casework. So it's just great. And the big reason why this film is so fantastic, and no one was talking about it this last month on various podcasts, even when they talked about Quiz Show being a great film, the thing that no one ever mentions is it's one of the only films I can even think of where, when you really think about it, everyone in the film is doing something that is beneficial. Everyone's going along with it. Even the scandal part, everyone is kind of okay with it. We have the TV show itself is successful. The participants on the TV show are successful. The fans enjoy watching, so they feel successful. They feel happy about it. The advertisers make money. They're happy about it. Everyone involved is profiting. So what's the problem? Well, at the root of all of it is this lie. It's not real. And so then the question is, well, if everyone's okay going along with the lie, then does it even matter? So it presents this amazing moral conundrum where we go, well, usually the reason something is immoral is because someone's getting harmed by it. When I steal your wallet, well, now you don't have a wallet anymore. You don't have any money. When I punch you, you're injured by it. That's what makes those things immoral usually, is there's a consequence where you've infringed upon somebody and now they're harmed by it. And so we're not allowed to do those things. But in this case, everyone was participating and everyone was benefiting. There really was no one being harmed by it. As I said, as Martin Scorsese says in the film when he has a small role, a great quick scene that he's in, you know, everyone wins. The advertisers win, the network wins, the contestants win, the fans win. So what's the problem here? Well, the problem is that morals go beyond just whether there's a victim or not. There are certain things that are right and wrong no matter what. And that's a very interesting problem because in our real life, it's very easy to say, well, there's no one being harmed, so it must be fine. But even if it's done kind of accidentally, I don't think the film is trying to pursue this consciously. I think Redford and the writers were just trying to tell the story of these characters. But underneath all of that is this great moral dilemma. Is something wrong if there's no one harmed by it? And the answer to that is yes. If you're still lying, even if no one's harmed, it's still a lie. Why? Because your conscience is harmed. You know, the structure of what we're trying to do here as human beings can be harmed. And even if no one recognizes it in the moment, it does harm us. So there's the quick scene in the film where Dick Goodwin's character tells a little story about one of his relatives who had been cheating on his wife, and he got away with it. So why is it a problem? The wife never found out. The husband ended the affair and kept loving his wife, and so he was fine. He made the right decision in the end. The family never knew, so everything was normal. So why was it a problem? And he says he ended up confessing to her, even though he didn't have to because he got away with it. But he goes, it was the getting away with it that I had a problem with. Yeah, because when you're living a lie, it doesn't matter that you're getting away with it. It's still a lie. It's still a problem. So it takes this, again, sort of weird world of TV game shows and advertising and network money and all that stuff. And it presents this amazing moral problem. And that's what makes it so good is you're left going, wow, they could have just kept going and no one would have known. It would have been fine. The reality of it, though, is that, well, lies are going to be found out. And sure enough, they were. But ultimately, does it even matter? Because we have reality shows today and we know they're all fixed anyway. Like you watch The Bachelor, you watch these dating shows or shows where it's about money. Like there's always some manipulation involved. It's not actually real all the time. And yet we keep watching it. So we're complicit in the lie, at least to a certain degree. The fans are, because in many respects, we don't really care. To us, it's not a reality show. It's just a TV show. And we kind of convince ourselves that, well, you know, everything in TV land is fake because I watch these other shows that are fake. We know they're fake. And that's okay because I know it's a fictional story. But that kind of bleeds over into the reality world. And we go, well, yeah, I thought it was real, but I guess if it's fake, then it's no different than all the other fake stuff I watch. So I guess I'll just keep watching. Well, that's a really dangerous place to be because we need to know the difference between reality and fiction. And reality TV now and back in the 50s on these game shows really, really blurred those. And it's something we're still wrestling with today. So again, that's Robert Redford's 1994 film, Quiz Show, which I highly, highly recommend. Great cast, great writing, just interesting story. And again, a film that, even though it was nominated for an Oscar that year, really got lost in the shuffle of the fantastic 90s films because there were so many great films of the 90s. It's sort of been forgotten about a little bit. And the moral lesson of that film is what should always be remembered. So I encourage everyone to check it out, especially young people. It's a great film. That's why I showed it in my college classes, and my students always enjoyed it as well. So there's a little review of some of the work of Robert Redford. Again, many streaming networks and podcasts and things have been having a kind of October remembrance of Robert Redford. And the more I listened, I thought, they're missing a couple points about some of his movies. I think I better add my 2 cents. So, great actor, great director, and great proponent of the art of filmmaking. I released a tweet right when he passed away where I said he was a guy who advocated for people to go out to the mountains and separate yourself from the rest of society. Come to this group of other artists. Learn together. Let's work together and teach one another how to make great art. And what do we do today in our filmmaking? Well, we have people sit by themselves on their laptop and just tell AI to make a movie for me. It's like how far we've come from the the real craftsmanship, the real effort into the artistry of filmmaking that he was a big proponent of, and that's why he started the Sundance Institute, was to, again, shape young filmmakers for the craft of film. And today, because everything is computerized and because of AI, you don't even have to write a script. You don't even have to do your own editing or directing. The computer can just do it for you. And so that's a shame. And so I always respected his commitment to the real art of filmmaking. So there's a few films from Robert Redford. Go check out Ordinary People and Quiz Show. And we'll get back to some other education topics next time. Thanks for watching.